Speaker, in 1794, George Washington, our founding father, wrote to his gardener that he should, quote, make the most of the hemp seed and sow it everywhere, end quote. He wasn't alone. Thomas Jefferson grew hemp. Betsy Ross even made the first American flag out of hemp fiber. In fact, here's a flag right here that's made entirely from hemp. Today, U.S. retailers sell over $300 million worth of hemp-related goods. It's not just flags. Hemp is found in over 25,000 products, from lotions to soaps to protein bars to auto parts to fuel. Yet, somehow it's caught up in a completely unrelated drug war that prevents American farmers from growing this crop and forces us to import it from other countries. Our institutions of higher education can't even grow or cultivate hemp for research purposes. Mr. Speaker, my bipartisan amendment, which I'm offering with my good friends Mr. Thomas Massie and Earl Blumenauer, is simple. It would allow colleges and universities to grow and cultivate hemp for research purposes. Our amendment would only apply in states where hemp cultivation is already legal, such as my home state of Colorado. I recently had an exchange with the premier agriculture research university in my district, Colorado State University. This is an area that they want to get into, but they feel that they're prohibited, and their attorneys are telling them that unless we can make this change, they can't actually do research of what has great potential to be an important crop for Colorado. Mr. Speaker, let me be clear about something, because there's been some misleading information that's been put out there by the Drug Enforcement Agency. Hemp is not marijuana. I'm very disappointed to hear that the DEA is circulating talking points that claim that somehow hemp could be used as marijuana. At the concentration level specified in our amendment, it's physically impossible to use hemp as a drug. Let me emphasize that. It's physically impossible to use hemp as a drug. Voters in my home state of Colorado and across the country have made it clear that they believe industrial hemp is an agricultural commodity, not a drug. Our colleges and universities are the best in the world. This is a modest step to simply allow them to research the potential benefits, downsides, strains to grow of this important agricultural commodity. There's been technology in France that allows tracers to be put in to ensure that it doesn't get contaminated with anything that includes narcotics. There's lots of research that can be done, and this amendment is a very simple, pragmatic step to do it. I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Colorado reserves his time. For what purpose does the gentleman from Iowa rise?
I seek time in opposition.
The gentleman claims time in opposition. He's recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the gentleman's interest in the issue, but it's clear that the Agricultural Committee is not the committee of jurisdiction to be addressing the provisions of the Safe and Drug-Free Schools and Communities Act. And while some may consider the growth of hemp to be an agricultural endeavor, I think that there are many who feel quite differently. I would therefore oppose this amendment and urge the gentleman to seek a hearing on the issue within the appropriate committee. And I point also that one of the concerns that we have long had is that even though the gentleman says hemp is not marijuana, I don't know if one can tell the difference when it's planted row by row out in the field. And I know that's been a problem within my state when the residue of the leftover hemp from World War II became companions with the marijuana that was raised for a different purpose. So I'd reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves his time. Or the gentleman from Minnesota asked the gentleman.
I wonder if the gentleman would yield.
Oh, I'd be happy to yield the gentleman from Minnesota.
I wanted to, on that, the University of North Dakota, one of their ag guys up there, came up with a way to splice a fluorescent gene into hemp, and North Dakota is a state where it's legal. So now the hemp that grows is fluorescent, and so you can clearly tell the difference between the hemp and the marijuana. So we have solved that problem through research.
The gentleman yields back to gentleman.
Reclaiming my time in amazement and reserving the balance.
The gentleman reserves his time. Gentleman from Colorado.
Again, this is, of course, germane. It was ruled and ordered by the Rules Committee. There's no issue with the Committee of Jurisdiction. I'd like to yield a minute to the co-sponsor of the amendment, the gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Massey.
Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to talk about some of the legal products that you can buy in the United States that are made with hemp. You can buy paper, clothes, rope, food, hundreds of products. Even car panels are made out of hemp. But the great tragedy is that we cannot grow hemp in Kentucky. We can't grow it anywhere in the United States, industrial hemp. So we have to import it. Where do we import it from? It comes from China. It comes from Canada. It comes from Europe. There are many, many uses for hemp. There are 30 countries in this on this globe that can grow hemp. In fact, I believe every industrialized country in the world grows hemp. Farmers in Kentucky grew hemp during World War II. Hemp was grown in large quantities in my state of Kentucky. Canvas and rope made from hemp helped with the war effort. So this is not about drugs. This is not about a drugs bill. This is about jobs. And for Kentucky farmers, we need the opportunity. We need the opportunity to compete globally in a global market, and we shouldn't be denied this outlet for another productive crop in Kentucky. Thank you, and I yield back to the gentleman from Colorado.
Time of the gentleman has expired. The gentleman from Iowa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized for as much time as he may consume.
And I also would like to remark, the gentleman from Colorado, it wasn't a surprise to me to see that Colorado is the state that has legalized marijuana. And so we also see the advocacy for this come from the same place.
Will the gentleman yield for a moment?
I would in a moment. Perhaps that's a coincidence, but I'll give you two things to respond to. And the other one is the reference to George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Betsy Ross. Quite curious. And I don't think we advocate all the things that they might have participated in. 2 out of 3 of those would have fit within a category of an ownership that I don't really care to bring up today, even though today is Juneteenth. So I yield to the gentleman from Colorado.
In addition, Colorado did legalize recreational use of marijuana. It also separately has legalized industrial hemp. So there are a number of states, more states that have legalized industrial hemp that have done anything with regard to recreational use of marijuana or even medicinal use of marijuana. All very different issues, and states are taking them up as we speak.
And reclaiming my time, I recognize that the gentleman's amendment only applies to states that have already legalized it. And that's true. Nonetheless, I urge opposition to this amendment, Mr. Chairman, under the basis of this, that we haven't had a full hearing on this. We don't have a knowledge base behind it. We have each our own understanding of it. Mine is a debate that I have seen that's gone on for years, which is when you plant hemp alongside marijuana, you can't tell the difference. And so it opens up the door for the recreational agriculture of the marijuana drug. And for that reason alone, I oppose it, but I'd urge the gentleman to seek a hearing in the appropriate committee and urge the defeat of this amendment, and I've reserved the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves his time. The gentleman from Colorado.
I'd like to inquire of the Chair how much time remains on both sides.
The gentleman has gentleman from Colorado has 1 1/2 minutes remaining. The gentleman from Iowa has 2 minutes remaining.
Okay, I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Barr.
The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We should explore the opportunity to produce industrial hemp here in the United States. This amendment would allow us to take a first step, carefully and deliberately. It will allow research institutions in our states, including my home state of Kentucky, to grow industrial hemp for the purpose of agricultural research, helping provide the information we need to consider future expansion of production. Our states deserve this opportunity to demonstrate the usefulness and viability of this crop for our farmers. Kentucky was once the nation's leading producer of industrial hemp. I encourage and support the passage of this amendment. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back to the gentleman from Colorado. The gentleman from Iowa.
Reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves his time. The gentleman from Colorado.
I yield the remainder of the time to the gentleman from Oregon, Mr. Blumenauer.
The gentleman from Oregon is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, and I appreciate the leadership of my friend from Colorado and my friend from Kentucky in moving this forward. 19 states have passed pro-industrial hemp legislation. 9 states removing barriers to its production altogether. As has been pointed out, these products are perfectly legal in the United States, some $300 million a year, but it just has to be grown someplace else. It's outrageous that American farmers can't produce it, but what this amendment does is to simply permit the research opportunities for colleges and universities to grow and cultivate hemp for academic and in agricultural research purposes. If this amendment passes and we're able to do this research in agricultural colleges and universities, then we're not going to have stupid talking points coming from DEA, and we'll have misleading statements that are made. People will understand why other countries have been able to figure this out, and the United States will be able. Nobody, regardless of your position, should be opposed to allowing our research colleges and universities to be able to do a deep dive to be able to find out what's possible.
From